Now, the salient features of the Companies Act 2013 is that corporate social responsibility has become a mandate. So this is how we are going on the liabilities basis, one which is limited by share and guarantee unlimited. These are all the kinds of companies which will come under the liability section. So in case of winding up, they will be liable to pay only the amount so guaranteed, and the company or its creditors cannot compel them to pay any more money. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Unit 1, second semester BCom, Company Law and Practice, where we're going to talk about Introduction to the Company Law. Now, the first thing is that we need to understand the meaning and definition here. So the Companies Act of 2013, which forms the base for India's journey towards corporate governance, towards a business regulation, this was actually an updated version of the Companies Act of 1956, which was later taken in and remodified so that we are able to go ahead with the company law at the present. So the Companies Act of 2013 has taken in accordance with all the still wild records that were there, and we have remodified it according to the modern need of the corporate world, and we have come across with the new Companies Act and the law which was enacted on 29 August 2013. Now, most of these changes found in the areas including composition of board, we're talking about financial reporting, corporate social responsibility, incorporated with the rights and responsibilities of the stakeholders. So what we have done here is that we have taken into account all the possibilities that could be fit in terms of understanding the company law formation, what is needed for the future, and then we have taken it into our presence. Now, the salient features of the Companies Act 2013 is that corporate social responsibility has become a mandate. One-person company, which we are talking about, which of late most of them are doing because we are seeing a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming up. We are also talking about independent directors and the board composition. These days, the board is getting very, very competitive. They want highly skilled people. They want people from diverse background, and the board needs to have the kind of diversity to run the organization. We're also talking about auditor rotation and independence. We don't want to have a fixed team which is always going to come and dictate terms and terminologies. Rather, we want to have a rotation altogether. Financial reporting and disclosure, this becomes very, very important for all of us. The harsh penalties for non-compliance and protection for minority shareholders. So somewhere the regulatory norms are being revisited, they are being revised, because we are going to keep in mind about the minority. We're also going to keep about the deviations that companies go through, and in case when they're being found deviating from the norms and the regulation, what are going to be the punishment for that. Now, the aim of company law is not just about guidance, it's also about governance. It's also about making your company more effective, proactive towards your shareholders, and reporting on time so that the investors gain confidence and trust in you and understand the company is working in progress with the society. So company law is no more just a legal subject, but it has become a social subject which combines the prowess of all the sectors, all parts of the sector, and we have rebuilt the entire system. So moving further, let's try to understand the types of companies. The first one is companies limited by shares. The second one is companies limited by guarantee. Then we are going to talk about unlimited companies. We're going to talk about one-person company, private companies, public companies, holding and subsidiary companies. Now, the main challenge here is that people always get confused with the factor that a company is a company at the end of the day. But why do we bring in so much of distinction, so much of bifurcation in terms of understanding a company? It's because of the nature of the company under which it is built. So when I say that it's limited by share, or when I say that it's limited by guarantee, when I say there are unlimited or one person, or about public or private companies, there is a distinctive meaning in terms of understanding their operations. Now, the types of companies will also include associate companies, access to capital, government, foreign companies, charitable, dormant companies, nidhi companies, which we are coming across, and public financial institutions. So, the list is slowly extending, and we are coming across different types of companies who have a different significance and their existence in the society. But nevertheless, these companies are prominent today, and they have a distinctive feature which is important for us to learn. So let's go ahead and try to understand and classify it. So this is how we are going on the liabilities basis, one which is limited by share and guarantee unlimited. These are all the kinds of companies which will come under the liability section. Then we are talking about on the basis of member, we have one person, private and public companies limited. We also have a holding subsidiary company, and then we are talking about the associate company also. So broadly, I'm just classifying it on liability, members and control factors. So that's very important. And now let's start getting into the liabilities base. So companies based on shares. Now all of us know that IPO has become a very, very common term in the modern corporate world. Every single company is launching their IPOs, attracting their investors to invest money in the form of shares. Now, a share is nothing but an individual format, that is the individual value of a company which is being presented to the shareholder for them to invest. So what happens is that while winding up of the company, the members will be liable only until they pay the remaining amount of the shares. So this shares is something where I owe the public. So when I am borrowing money from the public in the form of shares, I equally become responsible because I have taken money from them and given the shares of the company. So I am liable to pay them back. Now, the other thing is that the limited by guarantee in certain companies, what happens, a memorandum of association mentions the amount of money that some members guarantee to pay. So in case of winding up, they will be liable to pay only the amount so guaranteed, and the company or its creditors cannot compel them to pay any more money. Now, this guarantee concept is slightly difficult. Why? Because we never know about the corporate scenario that goes ahead with us. So most of the companies do not promise anything to their investors. But likely to understand this fact, when I say that companies by guarantee, that means to say that the members of the company, according to the memorandum of association, have signed a document and they have agreed upon this factor that I will pay you a certain amount that is promised during the winding up of the company, which means the company would go away when the company is going to completely get bankrupt or wind up altogether. So now that is where the promise comes into picture. Why? Because the members of the company have promised that they will be paying that money at the time of bankruptcy or the time of complete wound up of the company. So that's where the guarantee comes. Unlimited companies are one where, there are no limits on the personal members' liability. The company can use all the personal assets of the shareholders to meet the debts while winding up. And this would, extend up to the company's entire debt. Now, nobody goes in for an unlimited company because this is something where you are inviting debt at a very high level. The risk factors are very high. So people would not prefer to go in here. Why? Because until the end of the debt is completed, you can go ahead and wind up till taking away all the debts of the shareholder, pulling up all the personal assets. Now let's get on to something called as one-person company, where you have only one member and they are separate and they are a sole proprietorship. OPCs are also considered to be legal entities and they're distinct from their sole members. Unlike other companies, OPCs do not need to have a share capital or any kind of premium coming into picture. So I can be just one person, start a company, and I can say that this is what I have been talking about, which means there are companies which do not have any minimum share capital. You can still, have one person as a sole shareholder and run a company. Private companies are one where the articles of association restrict the free transferability of share. In a private company, you need to have a minimum of 2 and 200. Now we have extended that version altogether, and these members include the present and the former employees who were also a part of this, who can hold the shares. Now, in a private company, the biggest problem is that you cannot transfer the shares freely from one person to another person. And similarly, all these transactions are limited within the members of the company and not outside. So that's where this becomes a very big problem or a challenge. The next comes the public companies. In contrast to that of the public companies, the private companies, the public companies will allow people to transfer the shares at any point of time. And then to start a public company, you have a minimum of 7 and a maximum can be N value. Now, a public limited company has got a better access to the market because it can draw any amount of share capital, point number one. The members are unlimited. And secondly, what happens is public limited companies will have the power to get listed soon, and they will have a better access to the market share capital, and they have a wider approach. The reach is higher. So people also believe and invest in these kind of companies. Now, the next thing that we would be seeing here is called about in terms of control or holding. When I'm using this word control or holding, that means to say that there is some sort of hold, there's some sort of, grasp towards that company, and that's where I'm talking about holding or subsidiary companies, where the company owning the shares becomes the holding partner or parent. Likewise, the companies who share the parent owns becomes its subsidiary. So there is TVS Motors, there might be also TVS Lucas Limited, there might be TVS Brakes Limited. So these are all the holding or subsidiary company of the TVS group. So holding companies exercise control over their subsidiaries by dictating the composition of their board of directors. So they will say how many people can be on the board, who will be appointed as a board of director, what are the key positions to be filled. Furthermore, the parent company can also exercise by having more than 50% on the subsidiary companies. So this is what we need to learn here. Why? Because these kind of companies are also existent. They're not new, but yes, they have a different kind of a setup altogether. Followed by which the associate companies, which are also those which have a significant influence. The word significant influence will amount to a value called as 20% of the associate company. The other companies, control can exist in terms of the business decision. Associate companies can also exist as joint venture agreements. So for example, it might be Toyota Kirloskar, a joint venture we are starting all together, or there might be companies which is called as Bharat Benz joint venture, or some Bharat Dalmir, whichever can be a joint venture that we start. There can be an associate company coming into picture there, and the control would be based on that significant influence as we have been talking about. Now, the terms to the access to the capital, that's what we are talking about. Now, the access to the capital is very important for a company. Why? Because more the company has got access to the capital, the company would be able to take up new projects, ventures, and start moving further. So now, when a company gets publicly listed, that means the company will have a better access to the market. It will be able to trade better. And the securities get listed, and this means people can freely trade the securities. The movement of money is far easier. Whereas on the other hand, the unlisted companies do not list their companies on the stock exchanges. Both public as well as private companies can come under this category. With this, I come to the end of the first session. I hope and believe that all the facts and figures told through this presentation would be of a great help to you, both in terms of theory as well as in the practical walk of life. In the upcoming session, we would be again talking in detail about the types of company, their existence, and how the company formation as per the Act of 2013 is making a significant change to the company law altogether. Thank you once again for joining me together on this wonderful session.